This is Law Call.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to your 4th of July weekend edition of Law Call. And if you'll notice, tonight we're wearing golf shirts. Both me and my guest, James Dougall, who is a prominent DUI attorney down here in the Panhandle. We are not formal tonight. We wanted to be a little informal. It's too darn hot. Where's Ross Whitley when you need him? It's too darn hot. We need to, spray a little shower out there, cool it down, but it's way too hot. Hey, we're going to take your questions live tonight about criminal defense matters, criminal matters that you may have. Like I said, James Dougall's in here. He is a 20-plus year attorney. Let's get it over to James and well, if you've got DUI questions, 850-392-1544. A little bit off my game, we've watched some golf today. You heard us talking about it just a few moments ago, but chasing children around during the holiday weekend, right?
That's what I've done today. Beach and chasing kids in the pool.
And I've got my my in-laws that are staying with me over the weekend. So lots of activity going on, but we're here to take your questions live tonight, 850-392-1544. Just as a reminder, we are watching this on WMBB, WDHN, and Facebook Live with Perry and Young and the WMBB websites. So lots of people watching us tonight. I know that you've got some people watching you, some folks in town. We've got some great shout outs. We've got an email question though. Let's go to that first of all. And again, you can email us at lawcall@WMBB. Let's do that. I was pulled over and blew a .09, which I realize is against the law. But at the time, the officer said he had pulled me over because I had a tail light out. That turned out not to be true. Is this the kind of thing that would get my DUI charge dropped? Jeremy. Jeremy, first of all, you got the right guy here. You've got Mr. James Dougall. And James, before you even answer the question, how many DUI cases have you handled through the years?
Thousands at this point. Yeah, I've been doing it for, as you said, actually October will be 23 years.
Wow.
That I've been doing that, and that's all I've ever done is criminal matters.
There we go. All right, well, Jeremy has this question. The police officer says that he pulled him over because of a broken tail light. However, the tail light wasn't broken in the pullover, and he ended up blowing and got a .09, which is above the legal limits in all three of the states that we broadcast in, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. How does a DUI attorney approach that?
Well, there's a couple things, Larry. First, that .09 is just a presumption of impairment. Anytime you're over a .08, that's a presumption, and that presumption can be rebutted. So what they're having to prove is that you're intoxicated actually at the time of the offense. You may not have been at the time of the offense. You may have been, the breath test may have been a couple hours later. Now, I know the bigger question that Jeremy has is actually the stop in his case. So if you can prove that the taillight was functioning, and nowadays I can't speak for some of the other viewing areas, but certainly here in Bay County, probably about 80 to 90% of the cases we're getting video. So hopefully there would be some video there that would actually help corroborate that. I don't know if you were able to get this to a repair shop immediately afterwards to sit there and be able to establish that too. But those things would help, because if that's the sole basis for the officer conducting the stop, you would have most likely a motion to suppress. Once again, the judge has to sit there and make a determination on the validity of that claim.
So there has to be a valid stop or a valid reason to have the stop. What are some of the other things that people get pulled over for? I got pulled over today. My tag wasn't visible on my car. Thank you for the verbal warning, but it wasn't visible. We had a good exchange there, and of course the body camera's right there in front of us, so the video would have been present. But what are some of the things that people typically get pulled over for when you see in a DUI, or is there anything typical?
There are a lot of typical things, Larry. Part of it is swerving. Once again, the swerving needs to be more than just one swerve, because you could have been reaching for your cell phone. We have a lot of distractions in the car nowadays that leads to cases that you guys handle.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So please be careful. I'll use that to remember, don't be texting and driving. We have a lot of different options nowadays with voice text and those type of things. But that's one of the things, swerving, going off the road. You'll have sometimes people won't put their lights on. That's becoming less because you have automatic headlights nowadays, but that used to be one of the big things there for a while, because you'd be leaving a well-lit parking lot, and then from there you would not remember to turn the lights on. The other one that I see a lot is I know Jeremy talked about the tail light, but a lot of people forget, and I learned this when I was at a young age, when I was just starting to drive. I got pulled over by a state trooper, and he told me my tag light was out. And at first I thought he said tail light, and so after we flushed that part out, I realized he was talking about the tag light, which illuminates your tag. And so that is something that officers use a lot of times as a basis on a stop.
So any mechanical defect, abnormal driving patterns at scene, swerving, reckless activity, things of that nature.
Even having a headlight out.
Yeah. So I tell you, there's a lot of different things. Of course, the best course of action is don't drink and drive. We've talked about that. We're going to talk about it throughout the show. We've got Jeffrey on the line, though. Let's take a question from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you're up in Ebro. How can we help you this evening?
Yeah, I was wondering, how long would I go to jail for if I had a DUI?
Jeffrey, first DUI, second DUI?
First one.
DUI. Okay, so Jeffrey's in Upper Bay County, Florida. And so since we're talking about Florida and you're a Florida licensed attorney, what's the maximum sentence you can get with just a standard DUI, not a DUI with vehicular homicide or something like that?
Okay. Yeah, as you said, Larry, that does change things if you had serious bodily injury or an actual unfortunate death too. But what you'd be looking at on just a regular non-enhanced type DUI, you'd be looking at 6 months on a first at that time.
That's just average about what you're doing. And then what's the maximum penalty he could get under the law, though?
He'd be looking at 6 months. You could be looking at a year if there's some of those enhancements that would be put in there.
Okay. So, Jeffrey, I hope that answers your question. Now, since DUI kind of seems to be the central theme and topic here, somebody asked me, a personal friend said, hey, look, I had a DUI back in my 20s. I'm now coming up on 40 years old. Can I get my DUI expunged off my record? So first of all, what's an expungement? And then can you get a DUI expunged off your record here in the state of Florida?
We'll start with one. No, you would not be able to get it expunged.
Okay.
A DUI is one of those things that will unfortunately remain with you forever. And then an expungement is basically a process that has it where you have the charge actually removed off your record. So somebody would not sit there and be able to locate that charge. And in Florida, you're only allowed one charge one time, and basically for the expungement, the charge actually has to be dismissed. So that kind of leads me into, if the charge has not been dismissed and adjudication of guilt had been withheld, then that would give you the opportunity to have it sealed, which is a little bit different than expunging. Seal means you can't really see it. Expunge is actually removal. So the sealing would require a withhold of adjudication, and some states don't do withholds. In the federal system, they certainly don't do withholds of adjudication.
No, they don't in the federal system. Angie, Angie's on the line with us right now. Angie, where are you from?
I'm from Panama City Beach here.
This evening.
My question is, I've been in trouble before with a DUI, so am I clear to go out on the boat considering it's a holiday weekend? I mean, can I drive the boat? Is there like a penalty for, being out on the boat? Is there a DUI, or how does that differ?
Let me back up and ask this question for you. First of all, are you still under some type of suspension with your DUI?
Yes.
There you go. Let's answer that question for James.
Okay, little Angie. First off, on the part with the license, you don't need a license to operate a boat. Okay, so your driver's license really is not affected on the boating portion of it. So as long as, now things are a little different depending on your age, to where there is, of course, the boater safety course that's a requirement that's necessary. But as far as an actual driver's license, you technically don't need the driver's license. So if you don't have a valid driver's license, you're still okay to actually operate a boat, because that's not one of the requirements.
But let's talk about the BUI, boating under the influence. Is that a crime in the state of Florida?
Yes, it is. You're looking at a misdemeanor charge on a BUI. And once again, the part where, I've had some charges that have come up because it's boating season, dealing with the BUIs, is, people are always worried about the breath test and taking the breath test and those type of things. And currently, as the law sits now, if you don't take a breath test, it has no effect on your driver's license if you're being charged with DUI. Okay, so there is no suspension if you refuse to take that on your driver's license. There's a civil fine that is imposed that you can also fight that too. Okay, but as far as your actual driver's license is issued by the Department of Motor Vehicles, there's not a suspension incorporated with the BUI.
And this is the reason why we have our experts on here like James Dogle, because honestly, Angie, I would have given you horrible advice. We've got John on the line. John, you're from Grayton County. How can we help you, sir?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you blow a 2.45, which I blew, what is the consequences from that?
So blowing a .245 blood alcohol level, and so in any of our jurisdictions, that's 3 times the legal limit.
Correct.
So legal limit is .08 nanograms per deciliter, I believe it equates out to be. Sometimes you eliminate the decimal points as John just did, but go ahead and kind of explain if you've blown that and you've gone through it. Man, that's pretty stout.
Yeah, you're looking at an enhanced DUI. Actually, when I first started practicing, an enhanced DUI was a .2. It's now 0.15. So that has been lowered. And some of those enhancements at that time, it's not mandatory jail, but you have to have a ignition interlock, and some people are familiar with the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin, and she's asking them to sit there and blow in that, and that's what that is so you can operate the vehicle. You got to blow into the little machine there in order for the car to start, and then you actually have to continue periodically to sit there and do that while you're operating the vehicle. So that's one of the things you would most likely, the prosecutor would be insisting on a year license suspension that would be incorporated with that. So, you know, there's some of those enhancements along with the fine. And of course, they could sit there and do more based on that. But one of the big ones is that ignition interlock.
Yeah, John, it sounds like you got a tough road ahead of you. Make sure you've got a seasoned criminal defense attorney who handles DUIs in your corner when you go forward with this. Let's take a break. Phone lines are open, 850-392-1544, or email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. We'll be back in just a few moments. Hey folks, we've had some great telephone calls so far. We've had a great email question, and we've got T on the line. T is from Alabama, but travels between both states. T, you've got a question for us. Go right ahead, please. And we lost T. We dropped T. T had the question. Now, I'll go ahead and repeat it because our producers told us what it is that T was concerned. He has a medical condition for his leg. And sometimes when you're stopped with a DUI, they ask for what's called a field sobriety test, where they, everybody's seen the funny ones on YouTube where the guy's dancing or somebody's trying to do a line dance and things of that nature. But the field sobriety test can, different things that you have to do physically when you do that. And let's say that you have a leg condition or a heart condition or a balance condition. So the question is, what happens if you refuse the field sobriety test, different than just the breath test? James?
Larry, you're probably still going to go to jail at that point, most likely based on not taking the field sobriety test. Now, you do have a good argument as far as why you would not have done those, because there's individuals that will have knee replacements, hip replacements. I've had individuals I've represented that were in the military and, have taken shrapnel in the leg and had issues along those lines. At that point, they'll ask you to then go and take a breath test. And we were kind of talking about this during the break. Just because you take a breath test and say you blow under a .08, that doesn't mean you're not going to be charged with DUI either. And that's what a lot of individuals don't realize. At the point that you're actually being asked to take the breath test, you're under arrest at that point, and that's not going to change. Those things may help you in your case fighting the DUI itself later on, but you're unfortunately going to spend the night. You're going to go before the judge. The judge is going to set a bond at that time, and then you'll get released once you post that bond.
So T, hope that answers your question. Sorry we dropped the call there. We've got Kim from Panama City. Kim, what's your question tonight?
Did you blow DUI or BUI?
Ask us again, Kim. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that.
Did you blow for a DUI or a BUI?
Oh, and so the question is, do you have to blow for a breathalyzer in either a DUI or a boating under the influence? And since Kim is in Panama City, we'll answer that basically to the Florida rules. Go ahead.
I would certainly tell you as a defense attorney not to submit to a breath test. Because once you sit there and you're kind of locked in at that point in time. And there's some issues with the breath test machines. These are machines that are taking breath alcohol and converting that into blood alcohol. And the only true way to get your blood alcohol is to have your blood taken. And especially in a BUI, there are no repercussions at the time if you refuse to submit to a breath test on your driver's license. Okay, so there's not going to be a suspension there. On a DUI, they will read you what's called implied consent. They will explain to you that if this is your first time, that you face up to a year suspension. If it's a subsequent DUI, meaning you've already had a DUI, that you refuse to submit to a breath test, then you're looking at an 18-month suspension. Now, once again, you're just better off at that point in time maybe not taking the test in order to sit there and see, because you're going to have to look, and your attorney's going to have to look to see if the machine was actually operating properly, and that a lot of times even would involve some type of expert at that time. And some individuals just don't have that kind of money because those experts don't come cheap.
Right, right. So, but what are some of the consequences, though, under the implied consent law for your driver's license if you fail to blow? If you fail to take the breathalyzer test.
If it's your first one, you're looking at a year suspension. Now, if it is your first, you would be eligible for a hardship once you sit there and sign up for DUI school. Now, the big key here is you got to do everything within 10 days, and that's not 10 business days, that's just 10 days, okay? So you have a very short turnaround time period in order to get busy and get signed up for the DUI school, and then request that hearing with the Department of Motor Vehicles. And most of those hearings are done out of Pensacola, some are done out of Tallahassee. We no longer have a local office for those to be done, and those are done telephonically. So you don't have to appear in person. So a lot of that's by email and a telephonic hearing.
Okay, very good. And we've got another caller on the line. Who do we have there? We've got Julie from Birmingham.
Hi, we're here on vacation, and my husband received a double red flag ticket, and it's $500. Do we need an attorney to get that reduced, or is that going to affect our license?
I can answer. You go ahead. You answer since you're our criminal expert. I'll let you answer. And Julie, welcome to the world's most beautiful beaches. We hope you all have a great time. But the double red flag system, unfortunately, we've had several drownings here.
Yes.
And my firm has been an advocate for more lifeguards. The flag system, it's good, but it's not good enough in my view. But also, we've had people that the sheriff's office will go down the beach, run everybody out of the water, fly over, run everybody out of the water, and as quick as they get out of eyesight, people run back in the water. And of course, the unfortunate consequence of it, we've had 9 drownings over the last, 19 days. And so that flag system is there for a protection reason, but there's a flag ticket right now. They're talking about enhancing that penalty, not just a $500 fine, but go ahead and let's talk about the $500 fine, and then can Julie's husband's license be affected for failure to pay the fine, or
if she doesn't pay the fine, there could be a penalty on your license, because if you don't fail to pay any type of court cost, there can be a failure to pay suspension that could be implemented at that point. But the flag system, especially for people that are not familiar with our rip currents, they really need to pay attention and listen for their safety and the people out there. I used to work beach service back before I did law, and used to be a lifeguard, and I can remember the exact same thing. We would tell people to get out of the water, you walk off, they go back out. And I think one of my best stories that I told just the other day was there was a lady, I said, "Ma'am," I said, "is that gentleman with you out there?" And she goes, "Yeah, that's my husband." I said, "Well, we got red flags flying." Back then, you only had one.
Right.
And she said, "He's not going any further. He can't swim."
Oh, great.
I'm like, yeah, my point exactly.
Yeah.
So, stay up on the shore during those times. A lot of these hotels that people are staying at have lovely pools, and that's probably the best time to sit there and enjoy those.
Yeah, Julie, the question, the other part of your question is, can you go plead your case to reduce the fine? Probably not. And if you fail to pay it, like any court cost, there can be a subsequent, suspension later on down, but it's not a direct suspension on your license.
Correct.
All right. We've got Mike. Mike is on the line. Mike, how can we help you this evening?
Yes, I have a question. If you refuse to blow, do you lose your license, or do you have to blow?
And answer that. And we're talking about just a standard DUI, you're on the side of the road, and you got the breathalyzer.
Yeah, if you've been Mike, if you've been asked to submit to the breath test, you are subject to a suspension if you refuse. Okay, and so, but you're also subject to a suspension if you blow over 0.08 too. So you face a suspension either way based on that. Now you can contest those suspensions. You're allowed to have an administrative hearing. That's not done with the judge. That's completely separate than your criminal case. That's an administrative hearing with the Department of Motor Vehicles that you can request that. And as I said earlier, if you want, you can actually apply for a hardship license if you've never had any type of administrative action before, meaning you've never had a prior DUI or some type of action by the Department of Motor Vehicles. Now, that also counts not just here in Florida, because I've had a lot of individuals, because we do have a lot of people from other states. Florida does look at what has happened if you're from Tennessee, if you're from Georgia, if you're from Alabama. If you've had some type of prior administrative action there, that could be a problem for you here.
Yep. So, Mike, we get somebody like James in your corner to help you out, and you mentioned a 10-day issue there with your administrative hearings. DUIs are complicated. Seek the help of a professional, somebody who can handle DUIs.
Yeah, I can't harp the 10 days anymore.
No.
A lot of people will wait. You need to do something right away just because of that 10 days.
Yep. Folks, we're going to come back in just a few moments. The phone lines are still open, 850-392-1544. We're taking our last break. We'll be back in just a few moments. Stay tuned. Folks, we've had a great show tonight.
Yeah.
We got to thank you very much for the wonderful calls that you got. We had one caller who didn't make it on the air. He said, look, I had a DUI, it got reduced down to a reckless driving, but it cost me a ton of money. It also had an accident involving serious bodily injury. I got sued over it. Folks, it's not worth it. Decide to ride. That's MAD's, Mothers Against Drug Driving, meaning decide to ride with an Uber, a Lyft, designated driver, somebody who hasn't had any alcohol whatsoever. And our theme tonight is don't drink and drive. If not, you'll find yourself in James's office writing him a nice check, and that's just going to be the start of your worries.
Well, you know, just because I do DUIs, I still preach don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I have 2 little ones, and I certainly would not want anything to happen to them. I certainly would never want anything to happen to anybody else. So it's extremely important. We've got Uber and Lyft now, something we used to not have that makes it a lot easier for people to catch a ride.
Yeah. James, we got some shout outs to get to, though. Go ahead, get yours.
All right, I certainly have to sit there. That's my lovely wife, Shay, and that's Olivia there in the front, and then Isabella up there on my shoulders. So they were super excited when I told them I was going to be on TV tonight, and I told them I'd tell them hello, and I love you both. It's my little baby girl and my pumpkin there on my shoulders, Olivia and Isabella, and then my lovely wife, Shay.
How about that? What a great shout out.
Yeah.
That's really good. I got some varmints to talk to. Oh, we got to get to Bill Fish. That's the Bostarage. That is the Boss Ladies crew. They actually weighed in and did well. Look at that. Nice tuna that's there. That's going to be some good eats this week. That's another view of the tuna. And of course, Ashley Young brought that tuna in and landed it on the boat. The only female angler, I think, that brought something in. There's my varmints. There's Carlene. I mean, not Carlene. There's Paulette, and there's Gage, and there's little Benton. He's had a great time down here. Of course, Hank, handsome Hank's been chasing Benton all around. Who else we got up there? We got any more pictures tonight? That's just it. Okay, well, we've got Gary who's watching. We got Miss Pam. We got Sherry up in Alford. Thank you very much for watching. Bonnie is watching. Pam, Hank, and Carlene are watching. Daddy will be home soon. Got Mike over in Pensacola. And we got Daryl. Daryl is watching us. Daryl is out at the, I think he's at the Bay Medical Center ER, and he's got it on LawCall, and they're watching out there tonight at the ER. Everybody be safe. Have a great holiday weekend as it extends in through the next couple of days. Be safe out there, and we'll see you the same time next week.
Thank you.